different countries.
Volume.
And here we are at the start of the first event of the afternoon, the second semi-final of the 100 yards for people with no sense of direction. I'll just give you the competitors. Lane 1, Skolomoski of Poland. Lane 2, Zarapatik of France. Lane 3, Grobovich of the United States. Next to him, Drabble of Trinidad. Next to him, Fernando of Spain. And in the outside lane, Orman of Brazil. Well, that was...
So, good morning, everyone. You might have watched this video of Monty Python, the Olympic race for people with no sense of direction. So, besides being a funny video, at least I found it a funny video, it's a good video to make us understand that strategy is a common coordinated effort. In which basically requires that everyone rows in the same direction. So basically that requires that everyone understands what is the starting point, and the video basically is the starting line, understands where are we going. In terms of the video, basically is the finish line. But also, how does success look like? In this case, is the gold medal, right? And also, how are we going to measure success and how are you going to measure my success? In this case, is time and my time compared to others, right? But the employees don't understand the strategy. And they don't buy into it, and they don't understand how they are contributing to the overall strategy, how their rowing is adding to the boat, and how that boat is going to the destination. Then just chances of successful implementation, strategy implementation, is actually very limited. You can almost visually picture how everyone comes out of your strategy alignment workshops, basically like in the video. Everyone going on a different direction. So before I just continue into the topic, let me just go one step back and introduce my chat today. Which is basically from strategy to reward, aligning employees with the strategy, right? Which is part of my passion and my area of expertise as a strategist and as someone that does the strategy execution, right? But let me start with the easy parts, which is introducing myself. Now, seeing that picture, that I'm wearing the same suit, I must promise I own more than one suit, that you can take it for granted. But yeah, you may have noticed by my accent that I'm originally from the north of Limpopo, very, very north of Limpopo, around 8,000 kilometers north from a town called Madrid in Spain. And yeah, my accent doesn't say so, but I've been in South Africa, living here for 15 years. And basically, I've been a strategy consultant my whole professional life. But I would say over the last 20 years, I've been kind of specialized in the field of strategy execution. I used to work for quite a number of years for Professor Kaplan and Norton from Harvard. Maybe you know them as the creators of the Balanced Scorecard and strategy maps. So, yeah, basically that's my area of expertise. Job-wise, I carry two hats. I'm adjunct faculty at Gibbs Business School, where I teach strategy execution. I saw a couple of students in the room, and also I am founder and managing partner of Stratex Consulting. You can add me there on your LinkedIn or search. The good news is my surname is not very common, so you'll easily find me, right? But yeah, I'm founder and managing partner of Stratex Consulting. We're a strategy consulting firm. We're basically, the philosophy behind what we do is that companies actually do not fail with defining the strategy. The reality is that today, big organizations have their own strategy departments, or you go to the market and you find a bunch of consulting firms. And most of the companies end up having a decent strategy plan. Where companies actually fail is on the execution of the strategy. And because I work for Professor Kaplan and Norton, I've developed quite a lot of knowledge on these frameworks that facilitate the strategy execution, and that's basically what we do. So today, what I want to talk today about is basically one main umbrella idea, and then 5 key kind of takeaways ideas. And the umbrella idea is that performance and reward professionals are absolutely essential for strategy execution. Actually, I very often say that is one of those, probably the most undervalued profession in the management world in terms of how actually relevant it is, especially for people like me that we do strategy, is absolutely essential, and in particular for strategy execution. And understanding how to link rewards and performance with the strategy is very, very important. It doesn't matter how good your strategy definition is, doesn't matter how good your strategy execution frameworks are, if you are not able to link into rewards, good luck with that implementation, because it's not going to happen. So going one step back, we were saying before that strategy is a common coordinated effort, and you basically that everyone in the organization must be rowing in the same direction, and therefore you need to create some kind of light of sight for everyone to see how they impact. So obviously this is a topic I've had a lot of time to reflect on, and I've come with kind of an analogy that I think explains a bit why is this a challenge? Why is it actually so difficult to align people with the strategy? And I don't know how familiar you are with Google Earth. I think everyone has in their life played a little bit with Google Earth. No one has gone to the Machu Picchu and see how that looks. But at the risk of looking like a freak, I once counted the amount of times you need to scroll in your mouse in Google Earth to go from a view in which the world is a blue globe to actually the scale of where a person moves. You know, two very different worlds, even though it's the same world, right? One is a globe and it's blue, and the other one is absolutely flat, rarely blue, maybe sometimes green, sometimes brown, but most of the time where we move around is kind of gray, right? So that's a bit also the challenge of a strategy. You're trying to align and create a line of sight. Things that are really 17 scrolls apart. And it's very complicated to actually link it. And it's more complicated if you don't have those intermediate steps. Those arrows are actually what is the challenge. And it's why many times it's difficult in organizations, because they come with the blue globe strategy kind of thing. They give it to the reward and performance people and say, please you're in charge now of aligning people with the strategy. And you're saying, well, how am I going to do this, right? So I think what is very important is to create those steps and use frameworks that kind of create almost those levels. No, if this is like a strategy lift that goes from where a person is to the point in which you can see the full globe, and create those steps and framework tools that you can leverage to kind of link, closer and closer to the reality of people that in the end are the ones that are executing the strategy, right? So obviously this is the space of strategies, right? We don't see a flat world. That's for the flat people, right? So we see blue globes, we see macro trends, we see ocean currents, migrations, and all those kind of zoom out view things, and we decide, we're going from A to B in a transcontinental trip. And that's where we kind of playing, right? But if you are really into aligning people, with a strategy, you need to start getting closer to the reality of people. And maybe you can already zoom in a little bit in your mouse, and you start seeing kind of Southern Africa, kind of see a region. Yeah, it's still far from a day-to-day, but I kind of recognize that this is the part of the world where I kind of live, right? And that's the role of the strategy map. Fortunately, I don't have enough time to show you in detail what a strategy maps. I have a QR code that you can join later if you want to share some slides on that. But basically, it's a one-pager with all of the objectives of your strategy, right? And that's, for me, one of the first closest points. Don't end up with your 300-pager document going around saying, align people with the strategy. Okay, so first, your homework is for strategy people to go and build a strategy map. Once you have that, then you say, okay, for each of those objectives, what are the key KPIs? And we're not talking just outcomes. We're also talking the input objectives, into the strategy. That's already zooming in. No, I can see already Gauteng kind of area. That's already closer to the reality of employees. I still cannot move around with this map, but it's already becoming more tangible for me as an executioner, right? Then you get one more. You could see by the color of the taxis that struggle to find an aerial picture of Johannesburg, right? But then this is much closer to my reality already. I can see the city, and that's basically the cascading. That's the strategy for my departments. It's much easier to understand my role and my contribution to a strategy if I can understand what is the strategy of my department. And finally, then you need to link it to the day-to-day flat reality of the people that are actually executing the strategy, because the guys with the blue globe, I can tell you, those are not the ones that actually are executing the strategy, right? So your ability to link all of this story into personal scorecards and to reward systems that are aligned to the strategy, communicate the strategy, which many people actually, I think, they don't take as seriously as they should, right? So it's very typical, if you work in a big corporate, to be invited to kind of a strategy session, and they explain you all of these fancy things about the strategy. They might even give you a copy of the strategy, the blue globe with the line of where we're going from point A to point B. But then you come out very excited after that presentation, and then you finally find yourself trying to move around Santon with the blue globe, right? And it's like, okay, it's nice to have, but do I turn right or do I turn left, right? So it doesn't really work that well. It's obviously very good for engaging. People need to buy into the destination. So I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying that it's not enough to actually align people with the strategy. The challenge is then, how can we convert that into city maps, right? That is actually what you should be really good at doing. How can we convert that, overall trend line of we're going from this continent to this continent in 5 years and doing this journey? What does it mean for me in terms of my contribution, to the strategy? And the challenge is on the arrow. And the reason why this is so difficult is most of the companies only have the blue globe, and then they go and they do the alignment of people. They send you, probably in a WeTransfer, a 300 slider, because probably it's just too big just to send on a normal email, and then you say, align people, align to the strategy. You say, but to which page must I align, kind of thing, right? So you must go to your strategy department and say, I need those intermediate tools if you want me to align to people. I need to know exactly what are the objectives, not just outcomes, but also the inputs. I need to know how we're going to measure those objectives. I need to know if that's the strategy for the overall organization, what is the strategy for my departments? Then I can go and say, you contribute to this and you contribute to this. So that's the problem. Most of the organizations here just put some outcomes, maybe sometimes a portfolio of projects. They put it in a 300-pager, and off we go. And then your chances of really aligning people with the strategy are very difficult. And I know in many of my clients that it doesn't matter how good job we did at defining the strategy and at building those strategy maps. I always think that if this is not properly translated into personal scorecards and reward systems, me as a consultant and working for a client, I'm F, and F doesn't stand for Fernando, okay? So it's very important, and that's why I say it's a kind of a very undervalued profession, and sometimes it's also not because of your fault. It's they don't translate the strategy for you. I don't think it's your role to translate the strategy into those frameworks. They should translate it, they should facilitate that translation, and then you are in a position to link it with performance and reward systems. So fight for it internally and ask that they do properly their homework and don't come at just with the blue globe story, but also those other tools that are required for successful alignment of employees. Okay, so that was the main idea. And then I have 5 takeaways that I also wanted to introduce if this remote works. Good. The good news is performance management and reward works. And that you guys have leverage. It does work. People react to incentives, and that's actually very important. I think that employees don't want, normally, they don't do what they expected. They're more doing what they inspected on. And that's why it's very important. I always, as I was saying just before, I know that no matter how well we've done in the strategy piece, if then you see a personal scorecard that is just aligned with making your budgets, then it's not going to happen. It really is not going to happen, right? So, yeah, so that's the important thing, is to understand that this works and that people actually react. And if you put in the right things in your personal scorecard and in your incentive systems, actually people do perform, and then is your ability to link it with the strategy what is important. Right. Second takeaway idea. A strategy is basically the art of balancing speed of the boat stuff with turning of the boat stuff, right? So you need to understanding speed of the boat, just doing what you normally do at a more efficient kind of pace, and turning of the boat, considering that in the future you want to be on a destination that is not making a straight line from what you are. So strategy is really about the art of balancing those two. You cannot just do only speed of the boat. If you only do speed of the boat, you end up faster nowhere. If you only do turn of the boat, guess what? That's all you do. You're just going to be spinning on the same time. Remember, the speed of the boat is funding the turning of the boat. So you need to keep doing your day-to-day business kind of thing and more efficiently, and that hopefully can generate some profitability that helps you to fund the turn of the boat. So what does balance mean? Balance doesn't mean 50-50 between those two, right? What normally happens is in the pyramid of an organization, the higher you are in the pyramid, when you're measured and you're rewarded, the more it should be on the strategy side and the less on the day-to-day operational thing. The lower you are in this pyramid, if you're halfway to the pyramid, that should be more a 50-50 between some strategic stuff that you have and some day-to-day kind of performance metrics. If you are more in the base of the pyramid, you would be more day-to-day stuff and exceptionally some kind of strategic stuff, right? So try to use your reward systems and your personal scorecards to try to link these two and be very clear about what's speed of the boat and what is turn of the boat. Okay. Use the right models for performance and reward. And in particularly, and this is obviously a simplified version, but I think there are certain things that are key to use in terms of performance and in terms of rewards. First, don't be scared in using collaborative measures. We fill our mouths of say, oh, teams culture, and then when it comes to performance, it looks like you cannot be measuring on teams thing. The core of your performance should be the correlated with your job, right? And in both in collaborative and in core, you should have some KPIs that are more linked to speed of the boat, some KPIs that is more linked to turning of the boat. So imagine you are, I don't know, an IT consulting firm, and you normally sell SAP implementation projects. Of course, how much you sell and your budget related to what you sell is very important, but that's more speed of the boat. If you think that from here, in 5 years into the future, selling AI projects is important, besides linking this to your budget, link it also to how much AI are you going to be selling now. Why? Because you believe that you start selling AI now, you will be in a better position than if you just keep doing your basically SAP implementation kind of stuff. Last but not least, strategic initiatives, right? What is those turn of the boat initiatives or projects that this person is participating on? And you also need to reward, in this case, a little bit of the effort side in terms of execution, not just results. The reason is because the strategic initiatives, many of them only create impact in the following years, right? So you need an incentive for them to be executed now. Otherwise, it's difficult that I will put some effort on something that I see that it will make no difference on my personal scorecard, my reward, and it will only make a difference in 3 years from now. So I think that's the main reason why strategic initiatives are actually quite important. Okay, so balance the recognition of effort and results. And I think this one is actually a dilemma, which is very important, and I'm sure that you guys will relate to this, right? So employees and companies have kind of opposite views and interests when it comes to this, right? Normally, companies like, having incentives more linked to results, right? But employees normally try to have their incentives more linked to effort, right? So, and obviously, depending on what kind of incentives do you link it to, you can create strong perceptions of unfairness on both sides of this slide, right? So, since you all know that I'm a consultant and all that we consultants know is drawing matrix, I had to draw a matrix just to prove the points. So in this matrix, you'll find, at the top, the results or output, which is more the company view, right? So if you kill it in profits, it was amazing, you're there on the right. No, if it was a disaster because you own a hotel in Durban on the beach and the weather was terrible and you lost, a lot of money, then you're on the left. On this matrix here, what you have is the effort or input side, which is normally more the employee view, right? So if you are in the bottom part there, it means that you are working like crazy. If you are at the top there, you basically means that you go to the office, but you play the guitar basically the whole day. No, it's just, at least it's fun. So what happens now if you create an incentive system that let's say that in the negotiation, one extreme wins or the other, right? So imagine you fully link your incentives to effort, right? So that means that if it's fully linked to effort, employees are kind of always happy, right? If I work like crazy, I get a bonus. If I play the guitar, I get no bonus, but playing guitar was quite a lot of fun, so all good, right? For the company, actually, depending on where we are, you can have a strong sense of unfairness, right? If you are down there, right, so you made a lot of effort, but then the weather at the beach in Durban, the sugar price, because we are a sugar company, the sugar price and the exchange rate, and then my profits are very low, then I find myself that I don't have the results, and I still go and need to pay a bonus, right? It could happen the opposite, right? Maybe employees are playing the guitar, so they're okay, we don't get any kind of bonus. And then suddenly for the company, now the exchange rate, the price of the sugar, the weather on the beach is fantastic, you kill it in profits, right? But then you cannot not sharing anything, right? So it's kind of looking a little bit like greedy, right? Imagine now that you fully link your incentives to results, no? Which is very typical company's view, right? So the company is kind of always happy. There's profits, here's part of the cake. No profits, no cake. That's pretty easy, right? But imagine from an employee point of view, right? When you're on that bottom left corner, right? You work like crazy, and now the exchange rates, the price of the sugar, the weather in Durban, and now we didn't get any profits, then you're not going to be happy about that, right? So what do you do if you're an employee? You're there, then you go to a guitar store. That's what you do, right? To buy a guitar for next season, right? And then next season, no, you're there at the office playing the guitar, no, ping, pang, ping, ping, learning your guitar lessons, and then suddenly the price of the sugar, the exchange rate, the weather in Durban, and suddenly they pay me a bonus. I was like, next year I'm going to just play harder to see if I can double my bonus kind of thing, right? So the important thing here is that if you don't have a balanced system that recognizes both effort and results, you do not have an incentive system. That's the problem. And balance doesn't mean 50-50 once again. Oops, sorry, I wanted to go now back. Sorry. I was going to say that I use that guitar analogy because this is what I saw once at one of my clients, right?
So just keep on keeping on, keep on keeping on, keep on keeping on, keep on keeping on.
So you can see who didn't get a bonus last year, huh? Yeah, so this literally, I saw it once at a project, a client of mine. I cannot say the name, but it ends in data and starts with dimension. Sorry. So you need to balance then both, right? So you need to create some balance. If you really want to have an incentive system, you need to balance results and effort. Once again, balance doesn't mean 50-50. The higher you are in an organization, the more it makes sense that is on results and less on effort. The lower you are in the organization, the more it makes sense that is related with effort and less with results. Why? Because it varies with my capacity to influence. Okay, so final idea. Team cultures means team metrics. I mean, come on. Who has not said, oh, in our company, team building, it's all about the team. And then, it comes to my reward system, and then it's like, no. You cannot measure me on things I do not control. Yeah, but, we need to be actually aligned between what we say that we want in the values of our organization and actually what we measure when it comes to reward and performance, right? So it's very typical, that kind of control principle. Oh, no, you can't measure me on things that I do not control. The reality is that, if you think of a strategy and the KPIs of a strategy, all of those by definition are driven by the overall big team of the organization, right? So the moment there is a key metric that is important for the organization, and there is anyone that has certain capacity to influence that KPI, there is already a case for that KPI to be on those people. Obviously, you need to be fair and you need to play with weights. The more ability to influence, the more weight. The less ability to influence, the less weight. But the reality is that you should also be measuring team performance. And if you find, I want to put an example there. In a place, in an organization, you could even say, that really they say team values and they mean it. Have you ever seen in football a goalkeeper coming out of the field after the end of the match, like celebrating like crazy because he stopped 2 penalties even though they lost 1-0? It's impossible. They wouldn't ask for a bonus and say, no, but I did my parts. I stopped the penalties. Why I'm not being, you lost. What are you talking about? That's the reality. So I think we talk the team's kind of values thing, and then when it comes to actually be, consistent in what we reward and what do we measure in terms of performance, then we become very, you just can't measure me on things that I actually control. Okay, so I cannot believe it. I was even 2 minutes early. Well done on me. You see, maybe I should incorporate this in my performance and reward system to myself, so I'll have some cake after this. Okay, so I think we have some times for questions. I put that QR code there. If you want some slides on strategy maps, you can also, but I think that we have some questions.
So are we back? I'm back. Fernando, have you seen a speaker who celebrates that they were on time when the conference is late?
You see.
That's a dilemma.
I'll send you my invoice, don't worry.
All right, we do have 3 questions. Please don't add more. We have 3 questions and 30 to 45 seconds answers, please. Given the saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, what steps can organizations take to ensure their culture aligns with and supports their strategic objectives?
Yeah, so I think in general, moving culture is very complicated. And I think what culture do you need is an input already for your strategy. So I think you cannot even design a strategy ignoring your culture. You might even discharge a strategic option just because of the culture you have in an organization. Unfortunately, finding levers to maneuver culture is extremely difficult. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Vuiso, for that question. The next one from Anonymous.
Anonymous, I know. Hi, Anonymous, how are you?
The workforce implements the strategy, but leaders set the tone.
Yes.
How do we, as reward and HR professionals, influence senior leaders where there is no synergy at the top?
Yes. Okay. So I think if I would be wearing your hat, right? what I would go is the senior leadership and the strategy teams that are defining the strategy. They need to understand that defining the strategy is not enough for you to do your work properly. They need to do what we call translation, which is taking that content and put it into frameworks that then makes it possible for them to actually deliver on that alignment of people with the strategy.
Perfect. One last one from Anonymous. Will AI bridge the gap between results and efforts? Will we see better alignment between business expectations versus employees?
Okay, I think there's no time for that one. So I really don't know what's going to happen with AI. I think it's very easy to just give opinions on these things. I suspect that the most probable way of leverage AI that helps you for speed of the boat and for 10 of the boat is basically people using AI for being more, let's say, more effective and more efficient. But I would be lying if I say exactly what's going to be the impact. I think that probably that's my best case scenario, that's what will be happening.
Fernando, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The way you've articulated that one overarching, I guess, key takeaway plus the 5 ones makes a lot of sense, and it's very provocative. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.